Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging the moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine. Living Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging the moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine. In the Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of...
Hey, good evening and welcome to Fish on Northwest, Duane Inglin, not Kelly Barnum.
Not Kelly Barnum tonight.
You got a beard.
Got a beard.
Got some hair. Not quite the mullet thing that Barnum's got.
I got to work on that.
Yeah, need a...
You kill big bucks when you have that, I heard.
Well, that's his theory.
Yeah.
I'll let him rock the mullet. I'm not going back to the mullet. So Steve Kramer is here tonight, joining me as my special in-house co-host and a fan favorite. Got to tell you, people love it when you're on the show. So
Awesome.
I'm glad you're here tonight.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we'll appreciate you stepping up and taking on the duty. So we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight, but before we get too far along, I want to remind everybody we are live every Thursday night right out of the Host Studio here, unless we're on the road. And this summer, by the way, is going to get extremely busy, spring and summer, with I'm going to have to do some finagling. We won't have all in-studio shows. Might have to even do a few pre-records. I'm just giving you guys a warning. I'm trying to put my calendar together now to see how this all lines up, but we got some great fishing opportunity we're going to take advantage of as we progress through. So more on that to come later on. But we are here live every Thursday night, streaming on both Facebook and YouTube. Once again, thankfully, got the equipment fixed, so we're glad to be back for everybody tuning in. And we appreciate all the interaction all week long via Facebook. We put a lot of information out there, Steve, and folks respond like just overwhelmingly now. The content, the dialogue, some of it gets blocked because it's a little on the far edge, but hey, you guys got to, voice your frustration, right?
Keeps them engaged.
Yes, absolutely. So when you have things you want to discuss, you find information that you are questioning or whatever, throw it at us up there on the old Facebook and see if we can't help you out. But we want to see your success stories too, especially as we roll into spring, start getting the kids out fishing, doing things. Lots of clam digs continue to come up. Surf perch is going to be happening.
Bass pictures, crappie pictures.
Bass and spiny ray is going to be happening here shortly. Beautiful day today.
Oh, man.
We didn't have a really hard winter, so these lakes are going to warm up relatively early. And you're pretty excited. One reason I got him in here tonight is we are going to jump into the bait lab later on, and Steve's going to walk us through the progression, starting early spring bass techniques and tactics, kind of talk a little bit about their behavior. It's all based on water temperature, and we'll progress through the first couple months into the spring of how we can find success going after some of these small and largemouth, right?
Yep, it's time.
It is. So we're going to unveil that later on the bait lab. So we got that going on. We got a lot of information to cover. Our in-studio guest tonight is none other than David Troutt. David is no stranger to the show. He joined us in Sportco last summer, August, I believe it was, down there for a live event. Phenomenal individual, natural resources director for the Nisqually tribe of Indians. Been there since 1987. The man knows what he's talking about. We're going to cover a whole host of topics tonight. We expect you guys to fire up on the old text line here and get things cranking, because we're talking salmon recovery, Orca. We're talking hatchery production. We'll talk some habitat, hydro. The other one I'm trying to fit the cog in the wheel is how we recognize the impact of predation. And we recognize the 4 H's typically, right? Hydro, habitat, hatchery, and harvest. I like to throw the other one in there in some form of handle predation is what I'm calling it. So I'm going to introduce a 5th H out of the FHN studio here. Handle predation, damn it. Yep. It's time to get aggressive on some of this stuff. Anyway, David has taken time out this evening to join us in studio. Really looking forward to it. We have a lot of info to cover. So before we get into all that, we've got some forecast numbers we want to get to. But I want to remind everybody, as you join us week in and week out here on Thursday evenings and throughout the week on Facebook. Fish Hunt Northwest is presented by Better Homes and Gardens Pacific Commons Real Estate, located in Puyallup, Washington. Of course, Defiance Marine, located in Bremerton, and they crank out some fantastic boats. The Allied Series, the Arima, the Defiance, of course, well known throughout the nation. And they got I like to mention, they got a very nice complement of used boats there as well, including a 2015 Pro Sport 182 Raider.
Sounds familiar?
Yes, that we are getting out the door as soon as we can, so we can get ourselves into one of those 21-foot Allied. So if you want to grab information about the Raider that is for sale, the FHN or the Fish Hunt Northwest boat, just simply follow us on Facebook or one of the online sales things that's out there.
Good boat. We caught fish out of that out here in the bay.
We've caught a few.
We did real good out of that boat. Fish is good. It's got good luck with it.
Yeah, it's a great little boat.
Buy that boat, you'll catch more fish.
Absolutely. So moving along as we are. So Steve, I don't know how often you get down to chase fall salmon on the Columbia, buoy 10 and all that.
Not a ton.
Kind of a big water deal. It's, you know, last year I just kind of steered clear because I had too many other things going on, but the forecast was reasonable. Turns out the fishing was, for the most part, lights out for the 20-something days or so that we actually had a targeted Chinook opportunity. Fall salmon, we're fishing them in August because it's right as they enter the estuary waters out of the ocean, and it was very successful last year. So numbers are in for the fall forecast, and just a few bright spots. It's not it's not earth-shattering. It's not going to set records by any means, but you know, everybody looks and goes after that token or coveted, you know, upriver bright. That URB is what everybody wants to get their hands on. So Bonneville Pool, the BPH component of that run in the forecasting, last year it came in at 46,000 forecast. The actual run performance was 29,000. So you go, well, you just said the fishery performed pretty well. There's other components in that fishery that weigh in here. So just to put it in perspective, it came in at 46 last year. It performed at 29. It is again at 46,000. So there's hope that that contingent of it is going to add some upriver brights. The actual upriver bright, the URB as it's put on the list here, forecasted last year at 158 plus some change. Ended up performing at 212,000 when it was all said and done.
Wow.
So there's your uptick, right? There was your boost to the opportunity when guys and gals are down there getting into all those upriver brights and like, this fishery is phenomenal. I can't believe how many Chinook. There's one of your bigger contributors. The exciting news is they've bumped that forecast this year. Again, last year it was 158. This year going in is 233,000 plus some change.
Ooh,
so that's pretty exciting, right? Yeah. And then there's other ones. The Pool Upriver Bright contingent of that is, it was 56,000, came in just a little over, a couple thousand. That's bumped up to 71. All in all, when you add them all up, you're looking at a fall forecast for the Columbia for your fall salmon. Last year, the preseason forecast was 340,000. Going into it this year, it's 431. So again, it's not a million fish.
No.
Right? It's not even 500,000. But if it has an uptick of performance like last year's lower did, right? So it went from 340 preseason last year, rounded out about 375 when it was all said and done. So there's some fudge room in there. We may hit 500,000 if it's going to model like it did last year. The thing to keep in mind though, when you look at these numbers and you go, whoa, those sound, you know, that sounds pretty good. If we can get around 500,000 fall Chinook coming back to Columbia, that could be a pretty good fishery.
Decent fishery down there.
I think we're in trouble a little bit on our coho. We'll get into that a little bit later, but you know, the front edge of this Chinook forecast looks pretty promising. That being said, the upriver bright component is actually only performing, with these numbers, to put in perspective, it's only performing at 55% of the 10-year average. So you hear those numbers and you go, oh, you know what? I'm definitely going to get a room and I'm going to go down there. And I'm not saying don't. The fishing's probably going to be pretty good.
It's worth it.
But it is, in perspective, it's 55% of the 10-year average, right? So, and the PUB portion of that, there is a bit of an upswing there. It's going to perform at 80% of the average. So there's give and take on different levels of where those fish come from and where they're returning to, and they can model all that stuff. Again, it's paper fish. Modeling is like the most difficult thing that they do, but they try to get it in pretty close and find some moderate success. So moving forward as we roll, currently now we're going to be right on the front edge here of our spring Chinook fishery and opportunity. So the forecast for the 2020 spring Chinook numbers are in. Those have been out for a few weeks now, but 135,000 spring Chinook for the Columbia.
Yeah,
okay?
what's normal down there?
So that is down from 157,700, just under 158,000 from last year.
Okay.
But it is actually up from 109,000 and some change from not so long ago. But this is actually the lowest prediction or the lowest forecast on spring Chinook for the Columbia since 1999.
Ooh.
So when you hear things like that, you go, well, we got 135,800, almost 136,000 to go after. Keep it in perspective, folks. It's the lowest forecast since 1999. That kind of hits you right in the gut. So the token upriver bright that we all want to go after is at 81,700, which is down from 2019. In 2019, they projected almost 100,000 upriver brights. So that's down to 81. But the actual return last year was only 73,000 upriver brights. Anytime we're falling below 100,000 on upriver brights, it's concerning because it falls way below not just the 10-year average. We're going all the way back to 1999 and showing, that's getting concerning. And when you start thinking about where we're heading in the immediate near future, i.e. springers, and that is on the heels of a coho fishery that was projected to just do amazing things last year. It fell flat on its face.
Dead.
We've gone through it multiple times. We had the early limit restrictions in Puget Sound. Right after the Everett Coho Derby, we dropped that to one fish. Then a lot of the terminal areas saw either closures or one fish limits, ultimately resulting in closures. We saw the Columbia coho opportunity fall flat. We saw Grays Harbor really struggle with some short-term closures. So then on the heels of that, all of a sudden in December we have steelhead closures of all our north and central Puget Sound.
That's killing us.
Down to south Puget Sound, steelhead off the table, right? Can't even go after hatchery fish. And lo and behold, the last week here, and we beat it up extensively and tried to educate people to the process of what's truly going on. We looked at the closure of the Grays Harbor region, primarily the Chehalis Basin. So when you start lumping all that together, and you don't want to believe this BS of ocean conditions, I'm telling you, there's something going on here. We're going to have David on later, and we're going to talk about some of this stuff, cause and effect, and really what is the, some of the reasons behind these types of low returns. How are we seeing it after class of fish and species after species of fish? The chum fisheries. And David can talk extensively about that because he's got his hand in that from the Nisqually perspective. The Hoods Canal,
How does that happen? How chum spawn in a ditch? They're...
Yeah. One of the toughest surviving fish there are.
I mentioned that to my dad. I said, what do you think of this, Dad? Because he's 68 now. I said, what do you think of this? He goes, never in my life would I expect to see low numbers of chum.
And it's concerning so some of our fish species you can equate to poor survivability maybe in the rivers that they're rearing in, right? When it's hitting us in the gut with chum and pink
they blow and go.
Because they're out of the gravel and they're heading down, right?
They're getting it.
They're not having an issue surviving in fresh water.
Nope. Salt.
Okay, so there's a major issue here. Back on the springers of Willamette, it's going to come in with a prediction of 40,800, which is up from 2019's forecast by 600 fish. And the actual return, though, that was the projection. The actual return last year in your Willamette was only 27,000 fish. That being said, though, there are guys and gals that get out there and they do find a few from time to time, and they can actually rally and make it work. And you're going to find some fish. There's going to be some opportunity. Then as far as extending, I kind of went over how they're modeling the season this year going into it. We get our 30 days of fishing, and then we're going to have opportunity based on Thursday through Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Some folks aren't real happy with that. Other people are like, oh, it's okay, we'll make it work. Keep in mind, those are all subjected to run updates as well, and dam counts. And when those things don't continue to perform, then we start seeing closures. So we're hoping the fish show up.
Any opportunity we can get, though. If that's what you're limited to, we need more opportunity. So if this is it, we'll take a half-weekly closures or whatever. At least still gets people out. Helps the economy of those little towns.
And the other thing it does, it extends the season to where as you get a little later in season, there's hopefully more. The timing of the run is more ample as you get a little later into April and whatnot. So if we can extend it into April, touch the front edge of May, you may have opportunity, including into your tributaries where I'm going next. It doesn't look any better on the tributaries. Cowlitz has reported the 2020 spring Chinook forecast for the Cowlitz River, second lowest since 1980.
They already closed it, didn't they? Isn't it zero retention?
Yeah, it'll be closed because they won't even meet escapement needs for broodstogging. Okay, so there's another concern.
Unbelievable.
The Lewis will be about 75% of their take, and so their recent 10-year average run size is typically 1,700. So yeah, they're not going to make egg take as well. Excuse me. So the Lewis and the Cowlitz are off the table. There's one little stream, Southwest Washington, that we won't mention, that will, for all intents and purposes, be open, but you're only looking at maybe 900 to 1,000 fish. They're barely going to make egg take. So,
but it's going to be open, they said, or it should be?
That's another one of those where going into it, indications are you're going to have an opportunity. The problem with that is it's much like when they closed down the Chehalis Basin to Steelhead. Everybody is fearful of the amount of pressure increase on the hump tulips, or moving out a little closer to the coast of Clearwater and as you travel towards Forks. And we've talked to guys, and it's a reality, right? You close down all this, and here's your opportunity. People are going to flock to that.
Southwest Washington right now is like nothing I've ever seen. You bring your own rock to stand on.
Right. Yep. And to the frustration of many locals who've been fishing those waters forever, people are going to come and seek out, look for places to fish. You drive down the road, you see a couple vehicles parked, you're just going to walk through a field and think you have access. Then somebody tells you, hey, you can't be here, it's private property. Well, you're here, well, I have permission from the landowner. Well, they come talk to me. Until they do, I'm fishing. I mean, people have that arrogance about them.
Yep.
And it becomes problematic for the rest of us who are out trying to enjoy your fishery. Next thing you know, land's getting posted. People are saying, get off my lawn.
Yeah, there's litter. There's leaving gates open for the cows. My friend just had that happen to their property.
Yeah, that's a huge concern. I mean, it's just a trickle-down effect. I get it. It doesn't make it right by any means.
Nope,
your frustrations are heard. There's just no simple, quick solution to it. So, got to either stay home or go dig clams, or go crabbing, or go to the east side and fish lakes and reservoirs.
Or fish bass around here.
Or fish bass around here, which we'll get into later on. So we're going to get into a little bit of predation discussion with David as we get into the show a little later. Something that came up this week, Kramer, I think you saw it. There was a sea lion caught on video, or that was videoed by the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Department and staffers at WDFW. Go ahead and roll that video there, Josh.
Hold it in your mouth. No, it's with the wheel, so.
So that is the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Department and staffers at WDFW dealing with a 600-pound mammal who swam up a creek without a paddle, landed on a paved road, has no business being there, following the smelt into the Cowlitz and then into a small creek down around Castle Rock area. Not the first one. This has been happening.
Yeah, two or three, haven't they?
Yeah, at least, yeah. And even last year. It just kind of shows you on another level the out-of-control population of these sea lions. Those things should never be on a paved road, for crying out loud, right? So, social media is great in the quick resolution of that situation, simply be to shoot it and then just throw it off in a ditch somewhere. We know animal control is not going to do that. Yes, everybody would agree there's plenty of California sea lions.
The population.
Oh, yeah. But that's not how they're going to handle that. But that thing is not exactly too timid about charging somebody. Those guys had that plywood up in front of them.
I was surprised how fast he could move. He was more agile than I thought and looked pretty pissed.
Yeah.
I would not want to tangle with that.
Yeah, but it just, to show you that, if you hadn't picked it up on social media this last week, to kind of just show exactly this problem continues. It's not going away anytime soon. And that is part of my the fifth hatchery, the fifth H component in handling predation. It's time to get take action here. So we had Chase Gunnell in last week from Conservation Northwest. Really good conversations and dialogue from him. A lot of conversations, some of it around WDFW budget, reminding you all that legislative session is currently in until about mid-March, and they are making some headway relative to the WDFW budget.
Good.
In this legislative session, which is good because going into it, if you followed us last week, we talked about the Columbia River gillnet reform, rollback once again. Last year, the outcome referencing budget for WDFW and the lack of support. A lot of it based on the position the commission took with the non-tribal gillnetters in the main stem Columbia and where all that went. I think because there was a bit of a reversal from February 14th to the 19th, in that they then changed their tune to say tangle nets in the safe zones is the only viable commercial opportunity after the run forecast is updated in April. So they kind of all settled on that. It seemed that maybe legislators were a little more willing to open the wallet. So WDFW is going for $26 million to get through the rest of this year. This is simply just,
that's
1 year.
That's our shortfall for this year, correct?
Yeah, that's just for the finish out this year, not have to lay anybody off, cut programs, close down a couple hatcheries, the list of things that we've talked about since the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
So as it sits, I'm going to read through a couple of the highlights here that are coming out of this budget session in hopes that it comes through. The House proposal provides $24 million out of the 26. The Senate would provide 21. So they got to find balance in there somewhere. It's not a perfect plan, but they're getting a majority of the monies. How you squeeze the rest of that out, I'm not quite sure. But as I read through this, there's some other areas. And again, we'll reference some of this with David later as we talk Orca Task Force and monies allocated for some of the programs and projects coming out of the Orca Task Force. I think maybe some of the legislators are going to kind of lean on that to say, yeah, you can get that money for the Orca. So none of the money would come from either a fee increase or reinstated Columbia River endorsement, which is exactly what Governor Jay Inslee had proposed in December. He had come out with that, and everybody was like, absolutely not. Nope. It failed miserably last year, and legislators had no interest in going down that road, and I'm glad to see that they didn't. They stuck to their guns. They're like, it's going to be coming primarily out of the state general fund and not rely on recreational fee increases. So for all those that are complaining about, here they come after more money again, it's not really going to happen.
Good.
It's going to come out of general fund, which is exactly where it should come out of. It's good, but not perfect, as quoted here by Nate Pamplin from WDFW. He also reported that both budgets include one-time monies for continuing to suppress invasive northern pike in Lake Roosevelt. This is a huge deal.
I saw that.
This is a big deal. We talked to Chris Donnelly, Region 1 Fish Program Manager over there, quite some time ago, and we've actually checked in with him a couple times. And the Spokane Tribe and WDFW are working diligently to secure monies to continue to harvest those pike out of there.
There's some big ones. I think the Colville I saw tangled netted some that were giant.
They're huge, and they can be very disruptive to everything else that wants to live there. The biggest scare here is if they actually flush out and get into the main stem Columbia.
They will. Then we're done. Eventually.
Well, they can't stop them.
Yeah.
So $357,000 allocated. We're also they're introducing language or monies to talk about alternative commercial harvest options to the gill nets. Draft a plan along with that buyback of the commercial licenses out of the Columbia.
Good.
This has kind of been on the radar for a few years. Typically, those fall short of making it anywhere. But again, it's written in here. They're going to look at alternative year selection and a buyback program for some of the commercial gill netters on the Columbia, the non-tribal gill netters. So to the tune of about $573,000. Okay. They also have introduced, you'd like this, $517,000 for the fire-seared habitat wildlife areas. So they actually $500,000 allocated for some of the concerns with those habitat areas decimated by the wildfires over the last several years. So they're trying to recoup some of that. They are split on paying for required monitoring on Puget Sound salmon, Skagit catch and release steelhead fisheries to the tune of a little over $1 million. The House making it ongoing while the Senate provides for only 1 year, current year money. So it's recognized as a program that needs financial monies dedicated to it to sustain it. You know, I think anytime we're talking about Puget Sound salmon recovery and monitoring and those types of things, that money shouldn't even be a question.
No, much as you need.
It has to be there. Yeah.
Yep.
There's given the Endangered Species Act, less federal overseers mandate fishing seasons be closely observed, and that requires in-season creel samplers, test fishing, and number crunching. In other words, we need to put some monies on the table, again, to support creel sampling and test fisheries and sampling, period, to truly gauge the performance of these fisheries that are in such dire need. So at least that conversation's on the table. Whether they allocate monies towards it, I don't know.
They need to, though.
But they need to. The Senate is also mandating that they put observers back on commercial gill netting boats in the Columbia to watch how many wild fish come over the side.
Yes.
So this has been kind of a point of contention for me because of the discussions I've had with staffers at WDFW. When you can authorize a targeted gill net fishery for Chinook, as they did last year, but prior to that, a month prior to that, we had a discussion on the extremely low numbers of steelhead to the point of critical, and it was a huge concern. To the point it was the lowest forecast since 1964.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, for steelhead in the Columbia. And so we have concern, but, you know, as we talked at the start of the show, we had a pretty robust fall Chinook opportunity. And when those fish come upriver, you have a commercial opportunity to harvest those fish. The problem is you have a restricting factor of low numbers of steelhead. But they opted to say, we're going to go ahead and let the gill netters go in for 5 evenings, 9-hour blocks, 45 hours total. What about the steelhead? Well, we can't have observers on board because of insurance issues.
Oh,
that's the first thing I was told. Second, we're not going to have observers on boards, and we don't require commercial fishermen to notify us of steelhead encounters steelhead encounters. And I said, well, is it a concern that they encounter steelhead? Well, yes, it's a concern, but we feel the numbers are going to be low enough because the run performance is so low, our interception of steelhead is something we're not going to worry about. They're just not allowed to keep steelhead. They have to release them or throw them over.
Is there revive tanks?
No revival tanks. Simply can't keep them on board. So in other words, the plan is you can target Chinook. You're not allowed to keep steelhead, so you must throw them overboard. So then you see the stories surfacing about, hey, there's dead steelhead floating in this little back eddy here, you know, and then WDFW comes to investigate, and they go, well, those were just unfortunately subjected to the gill net fishery, right? So I was a little bit frustrated because we're talking about how low the numbers were on these steelheads. All the tributaries upper Columbia were closed. There was no recreational opportunity.
And those are big runs normally.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a lot of tackle to those guys.
And everybody was like, well, if it's this huge of a concern, we get it. Right? Recreational community is kind of like, we understand. Frustrating, yes, because it's another closure. But it's the right thing to do. Because, again, fourth lowest forecast since 1964. That should raise everybody's hackles. They go, what is going on?
Yep.
But then they authorized the gill net fishery. So when I can read into the budget line here to say the Senate is mandating putting observers on boats that are gill netting the main stem Columbia, I'm like, okay, all right. If you guys want to spend money for that, I'm good with that, because observation to truly track those fisheries, how they are not performing, how many fish we might kill via bycatch, and truly what our impact is. It all comes down to impact.
And it'll help set seasons down the road that if you're catching that many steelheads bycatch, hey guys, you get a 5-hour season for 3 nights instead of 9 hours
because
for 5
or
7 nights. Because of the impact.
So as it was, they canceled the final day. They got 4 nights, 36 hours or whatever it was. Don't know the numbers that they got. Don't know what the steelhead numbers were.
I'd love an honest number on that.
Well, and I get it. They're using 9-inch mesh, which is ideal for Chinook and the steelhead. Yes, a percentage can pass through, but a percentage also get caught up and die. And
especially those big ones that are heading up into Idaho.
Yeah, those 18-pound hatchery fish.
Those are the big ones we don't want to get tangled.
Anyway, there's a handful of other things on here that I find interesting. There's monies going towards Orca, though they're split. The Senate will say yes, the House is saying no, and those are ones I wrote on here. Maybe they're looking for the Orca task force monies because there are several million at different levels that are being allocated towards that, aside from WDFW's actual budget, right?
Okay.
So there's also money that need to go towards the Sioux Creek Hatchery on the Green River. It kicks out 7.7 million fall Chinook. 7.7 million fall Chinook.
Wow.
Out of Sioux Creek. They need to rebuild that facility. It was established in 1901. So when we're talking about hatchery reform, hatchery rebuilds, boosting the numbers of Chinook, secondary to the needs of Orca and what the task force has recommended, it's those types of things. It's like, well, where does the money come from? Is it going to come out of the WDFW budget and Senate and House can approve those monies, or does it fall back and they lump it over into Orca task force monies, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of those that go back and forth. The main thing to remember is that during the Great Recession of 2008, 2010, the general fund contributions to WDFW budget was cut substantially, and it's one of the departments throughout the state and where all the monies get divvied up into the budget where they haven't bounced it back. And truly, they are still at a 0.05% of the general fund goes towards Chase verified that last week. 0.05, less than 1% of the general fund goes towards WDW's budget, and then the other monies come from license sales and some federal kick in. But to think of the amount of money the state is getting and how they are actually kind of sitting fat and happy right now, and they allocate for our green state
0.5%,
and all that we have opportunity to do, and all that it takes to manage fishing and hunting and shellfish, co-management, everybody working together, try to rebuild these runs, and it's on everybody's radar. This is a huge deal. It's like, we got to work hard to bring this back. We're going to give you 0.5%. It's just, it's absolutely absurd. So I don't know what it's going to take to get permanent funding. I don't know what it's going to take to, for legislators to step in and say, we need to bump this to whatever percent that is, to allow them to run the programs in the needs of running WDFW. But at some point, we got to get there. So, okay, that's a lot of the stuff I wanted to get to. A lot of information blown up here on the old screen, Steve. Some folks are indicating that that little Southwest River probably more than likely will also close to no springer retention within the week or two as numbers get tightened up a little bit.
They'd have to. You can't have everything shut down around it and have that be the only thing open.
Yeah, because everybody knows where that is and they'll be all on top of it.
There's not enough cupcakes for the whole class.
Yep.
Period.
Yep. So there's that. And a little bit of support here for the budget heading in the right direction. Hopefully that continues and we allocate the monies that need to be there. Again, I think a lot of that stems from WDFW Commission kind of massaging their initial decision February 14th, kind of softening the blow a little bit around February 19th. And, we would like to give them support. We'd like to say fund WDFW, but let's make sure we're utilizing the money correctly and we're moving towards conservation and opportunity for all players, right?
I don't mind paying if we are getting something good out of it and they're spending the money properly.
Exactly. All right, we're going to jump out for a quick break. Let me check my list. Nope, we're not. This right here. Yes, S&C rod racks. My buddy Stuart has been building these for a few years, and he had them down at the Portland Sportsman Show once again, and he said, hey, you need to get one of these in your drift boat. And I was telling Kramer,
they're cool.
At the beginning of the show, that I had manufactured one of these years ago out of PVC pipe and a rod rack and stuff, and it is such a great tool to have, especially on your drift boat, but you can even put it in your bigger boat if you want, just a means of getting rods off the side and locking them in place. And as far as drift boats go, though, this thing out the back end of your drift boat behind your oarsman's seat, line your stuff up in the gunnel and kick your rod tips out the side. It is a game changer. And if you haven't checked these out yet, go to sncrodrack.com, sncrodrack.com. Stuart builds these things, and I tell you, he's a heck of a craftsman. He does a lot of things. In this bottom, the bottom insert here, basically you can get one for any type of manufactured rod holder that you might have on your boat. They have the insert unit for any receiver that you have, and it'll organize your boat. You will no longer just have rods bouncing everywhere and
breaking.
Yeah, so definitely give those a look, and I will definitely be using that on my drift boat for years to come because it's not going anywhere. So now with that, we're good to go, right, Josh? Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. All right, we're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to introduce David Troutt, the Nisqually Tribe Director of Natural Resources, and he is here for the majority of the show. We'll jump into the bait lab later on. We do have a cooking segment this evening with some surf perch.
I'm excited for that.
It is such a fantastic recipe, and the reason I threw that out there is because we have a lot of clamming opportunity coming up, and you want to get out there early, get your surf perch, get your clams, and take advantage of that. This is a great recipe. It's so darn good. So we'll get to that a little later on. Jump out for a quick break. We come back. David Troutt will join us right here in studio, right here on FHN.
Marine is the one-stop shop for the Pacific Northwest angler. Whether you are looking for a small skiff to fish the Sound or rivers, or a huge offshore tuna machine, Defiance Marine has it. At Defiance Marine, be sure to power your boat with a Honda outboard package. Take advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty on your Honda outboards. Our service department is always here to help and serve you as the customer. Did you know Defiance Marine has boat financing experts to help get you the best term rates on your new boat purchase? If you need financing for that new boat, call us today. We guarantee the best price, best service on a repower for your current boat. Defiance Marine is a Honda Premier dealership and one of the largest on the West Coast. Defiance Marine also carries all the gear that you will need. Everything from auxiliary kicker motors to fishing tackle and bait. Defiance Marine has certified technicians that are top-notch at their job. Some of the best in the Pacific Northwest at evaluating your boat issues and problems. Stop in today or give us a call for all your needs at Defiance Marine.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
Everybody, welcome back. Fish on Northwest. Duane Inglin and Steve Kramer, my co-hosts this evening. Thank you once again.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. You're just such a natural fit, right?
Yep,
You've been here so many times. Want to introduce our guest for this evening, David Troutt, Natural Resources Director for Nisqually Tribe of Indians. Thank you for coming in again, once again, my friend.
Thank you for asking me to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I have talked over the years. I feel like quite a bit in the realm of fisheries and conservation, and just a lot of things going on down here in the Nisqually Basin Delta, and just the tremendous efforts and work being done, and just the transition. We were talking before the show, the entire estuary and all those things that we've discussed in the past. There's a lot going on there. But you, I think you told Steve 32 years?
Yep.
Right?
They're going on 33.
Yeah.
Wow.
About the same amount of time I've been with fire department, from about 87.
So you started when you were 10 years old too?
Yeah. So, I mean, you've seen it from just way back in the heyday in the 80s, and kind of the transition, the ups and downs, and the highs and lows, and the frustrations, and the political venue, and just having to fight for a lot of the things you guys have settled on and achieved, and and to your credit, a lot of it is all in the name of fish. I mean, it comes down to, we were talking about the Browns farm earlier, and just that whole transition of converting it to a farm, getting it back to estuary waters that are vital for the survivability of salmon, right?
Yeah, you bet.
So a lot of things going on there, but we'll start off this evening with one of the things you were tasked with or had the opportunity to join in on was the Orca Task Force as of late. Program that was up and going for about 18 months. Governor Inslee and task force would meet. How often would you guys meet when that thing was fully up and going?
Well, I was on the PRAE working subcommittee, and we met 2 or 3 times a month through a lot of that time period.
Interesting.
So it's pretty intensive.
Yeah. They had a lot of things they wanted to tackle in short order. Was that driven by, hey, there's going to be a cost associated with this, and knowing that we need to get it out there for budget area and that type of thing? Or is it like the science is telling us we need to act now?
Well, I think there were a combination of things that were really moving everyone towards dealing with the issue, and the governor, to his credit, was and is still significantly concerned with the plight of the orca. And so the population was dropping to the point where the scientists were saying if it got much lower, it may not recover. We may lose, it may go extinct. And the governor stepped in and said, we've got a recovery plan in place for orca, but I need community support to make it happen, and I need to be sure that what's in the plan, it was written 15 years ago or so.
Oh, is that right?
Still makes sense today. Yeah, it was written by NOAA, and so it wasn't a community-based, state-driven process. And so the governor brought together a bunch of different representatives across the state of Washington, local elected officials, state government, tribal government, to come up with a sense of priority and plan based on what we know now for salmon and orca, and try to prioritize that, and then to move it fairly quickly so it could be in place, at least portions of it, for the last big biennial budget. And then the report just got wrapped up in time for this next supplemental budget that you were talking about earlier.
What do you think was the most revealing information that came out of that in all the meetings? Was it the science-based information that was kind of telling of, hey, we're in serious trouble here? Yeah,
there were a lot of things that came out of that were new to me, and I learned a lot going into it. And for example, one of the things that I learned through the prey group was really thinking about salmon, since salmon is the main prey for southern resident killer whale, and particularly Chinook salmon being the most important for most of the time, was that the amount of salmon going out of Puget Sound now is within the historic range that we've seen over time. But the big difference is now is that the vast majority of the fish are hatchery fish. 200 years ago, these were all wild fish, and Chinook, for example, were leaving the systems from February to November, and the adults were coming back from March through November, December, and just a broad period of when these fish were available for things like orca. And we're producing more or less the same amount of fish, but they're being released in very short windows, in 3 weeks in May, and they're coming back in very short windows in August. And so even though it seems like there's a lot of fish out there, from the perspective of an orca, when they need it most in the winter, there just isn't food available for them.
There's no fish out there.
And we're seeing them starve.
The blackmouth program isn't cutting it.
Right. The blackmouth program isn't, and those happen to be some of the most toxic of all the food available for them.
Yeah, because they residualize here, they pick up all the heavy metals and the drugs and all the things that are in Puget Sound.
Right.
When we have safety notifications you should only eat XYZ amount of this type of fish in your diet per week.
I think it's one serving a month for blackmouth, I think is what I read.
Yeah.
For Puget Sound blackmouth.
And the orcas aren't getting those alerts, so they're eating them. And
that's true.
And they bioaccumulate, so those toxins get accumulated in their fat. And when they're healthy and there's lots of food, they don't tap into that fat reserve. But when they're starving is when they tap into the fat reserve, and then all those toxics get put into the bloodstream and into the muscles, and so they're starving and being poisoned at the same time. Yep.
Never thought about that.
Yeah, it's not good.
So the run timing of salmon has proven to be detrimental on a lot of fronts. Orca is one of the main issues here, obviously, as you just stated. So in part of salmon recovery is recognizing the failures in that. So are we moving away from seeding all of Puget Sound with Chambers Bay or Chambers Creek strain of Chinook? Are we? Do you see us moving more towards in-basin recovery efforts? Understood that genetically, all Puget Sound Chinook are pretty much linked, though they do have a few distinct strains of DNA still in some of the wild stocks, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But the Skagit is a distinctly wild population,
right.
And there's still wild fish left, although not very many in the Stillaguamish and the Snohomish.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So more of those northern rivers, but like central to South Puget Sound?
All Green River hatchery fish.
All Green River hatchery fish.
Yep.
And at the time they thought they were doing the right thing.
Right.
It's like what we did with steelhead. You take a steelhead and we're just going to seed the landscape with them, and their hatchery fish are going to come back, and then we find out 30 years later this was the exact wrong thing to do.
Hell, we'll throw them in the Great Lakes too. Why not?
Oh yeah, right. They've enjoyed them.
They worked there for a while.
More than us, actually, I think.
Yeah.
But.
So, in regards to Orca, what are some of the things Nisqually Tribe is doing, either with producing more or less fish, trying to key in on genetic strains that more replicate your wild stock fisheries? What are your hatchery numbers currently? Are they going to go up because of the need for Orca? Where are you guys at? What are you doing?
Right. Well, I think the key to all of this is understanding what the limitations are to salmon recovery. Mm-hmm. And so I've brought a little display here to try to explain this, because it can get really complicated really quickly, but at the end of the day, it's a very simple concept, and it's carrying capacity and having enough stuff that the fish need in Puget Sound to support more fish. And so if you think about this little glass dish as being the world of Chinook salmon, so everything they need is in this glass. So from freshwater habitat where they spawn and rear to the estuaries, all the positive things they need, food in Puget Sound, but it also, what makes up this cup are things like killer whales and seals and bird predation, all the things that also eat the fish. So everything, all the positive and negatives determine how many fish you can produce out of Puget Sound. It's a carrying capacity. Right. So if you think about that, in these lovely coffee beans are fish, there's only so many fish we can put into this cup.
We need Wilson.
Before it fills up.
Exactly. Wilson to eat all these coffee beans right now. Yeah.
So we're basically, as I just mentioned, we're more or less, the cup is full. We're producing about the same amount of fish we produced historically. Well, not exactly, but...
The difference is the majority of those are hatchery versus all wild fish.
They're hatchery fish right now.
150 years ago.
And 150 years ago, the size of this cup was much larger. There weren't 4 million people living in Puget Sound. There weren't docks and bulkheads along Puget Sound. There weren't wastewater treatment plants in Puget Sound and storm runoff and all the things associated with us. So the bowl was bigger and there were more fish. But now, because of all the impacts in Puget Sound, from habitat loss and destruction to the invasion of California sea lions and the explosion of harbor seals, we now have a much smaller cup. So some are saying, well, why don't we just put more hatchery fish into Puget Sound? Well, if we do that, and the dog should be here, basically you can't do that because the cup is full.
Right.
The only way to get to salmon recovery and to deal with the issues that we care about for Orca and for us is to get a bigger beer glass, to make more...
Here, let's put that logo out there.
There you go.
To get a really nice beer glass.
Yeah.
To get a bigger container, to make the cup bigger for fish. And you can do that in a number of ways. And the easiest and quickest way is by increasing the amount of habitat available to them.
Right.
Not only in terms of quantity, but also quality, better habitat for them. So salmon recovery is all about providing more good quality habitat to grow the size of the carrying capacity so that we can have more fish. And if we want to produce more wild fish or more hatchery fish, we need to have a bigger container. So habitat is the quickest way to get there. Another way to get there, though, is to deal with some of the negative things that are keeping the glass small, like avian predation, like marine mammal predation. By not doing anything on those fronts, and right now we're basically doing nothing, we're making a choice. We're basically deciding that we're okay with the size of the cup, we're okay with the size of the salmon being produced, the amount of fish being produced, and we're okay with the fact that these other things are competing directly with southern resident killer whales and with us for that limited resource, and we're okay with the fact that the seals are going to win. And if we do nothing about this issue, the seals will win, and we will lose southern resident killer whales in Puget Sound.
Containers the same size. We add more fish and overflow it. The winners end up being the aggressive predation individuals that are out there. We simply feed the machine, as I call it. We're just making stronger, higher survivability of mothers that are birthing pups, more nutrition. You know, they're getting fat and happy. They have all the oils and the fats and all the things they need to generate sustainability for their pups. We have a higher survivability of a predator mass that we don't want to see continue to go on the incline. And right now, they're almost going straight up like a telephone pole. Right. Right? And all we're going to do is continue to feed them. So I'm all about, yeah, we've recognized we got to get food out there for the orcas. But at what cost? And if we simply, you know, it's like a pie, and if we're only going to deal with one slice of that and just disregard everything else you're talking about, we're never going to gain any ground here, right? So as we progress through the show, we're going to talk habitat, really what some of the holdups are. I mean, yeah, you've heard it often said, well, we're destroying more habitat faster than we're rebuilding it. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Our population in the last 35 years has more than doubled in Washington State. It went from like 3.5 million over 7.8 or whatever it's at now, right, in 33 years. So we are consuming a lot of ground and impacting waters and all that things in habitat. Albeit on the other side of it, we are doing some good things too, but that's one of the equations of the plan I look at as never-ending, ongoing, long-term, because it's going to take a while to reach the finish line in that one, right? Right. We're going to talk about those that are in the camp of dam removal, the earth portion of some of these dams in the Snake River. Is that really where we want to spend the money? Are we getting the most bang for the buck by simply removing dams when we're going to dump more fish in the rivers and just feed the avian predators and the pinniped predation, right? Exactly. So we got big ticket items. We have smaller goals that are more achievable by exercising, you know, hunters to assist with game management, as has been proven time and time again. There's benefits to that on different levels. So we're going to talk habitat, we're going to talk hydro, we're going to discuss harvest. You come from a culture and support commercial harvest in terminal areas. We are on the recreational side of it. We're working together to try and achieve a common goal, and people need to understand that, right? Yep. So we have discussions, adult discussions we have to have. And that's why we do this show, because I feel it's important that we put this out there in front of people. And so we got a lot of information to tackle. David is spot on with his example of, well, this is one cog in the wheel. There's a lot of other components to this. So we're going to break all that down later on the show as we progress. You guys hang in there, don't go anywhere. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back. Kramer, we're going to do the Cuban surf perch in mojo sauce.
Oh my God.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds phenomenal.
It's the time of year is perfect. You guys, if you're going to be out going after, and we got just a ton of clam opportunities still to come through April and May. And as we get more towards spring, we have daylight hours.
The morning digs. Those are the ones I like.
And then we transition to the morning digs. No longer out there with the kids at night with the headlamps. You can go get your clams, cut your clam necks off, spend the mid-morning getting your surf perch, come home with a beautiful cooler full of tasty treats. So the Cuban surf perch in mojo sauce is coming up right after this break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in the kitchen with Chef Kelly and Sherry here on FHM.
Allied boats are built by West Coast fishermen for West Coast fishermen. Deep V 21-degree dead rise at the transom guarantees a smooth ride no matter the conditions. Allied offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Allied boats range from 19 to 32 foot in length, so no matter what type of heavy gauge boat you are looking for, we have it for you. All of our Corsair 21-foot and larger designs come standard with reverse chine that is welded inside and out with no extrusions below the waterline, so that you will never have to worry about corrosion problems down the road. Get out on the water today in a boat that you can trust and enjoy with Allied Boats. Contact us at Allied Boats today to learn much more about our incredible fishing machines.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Fish Hunt Northwest. We're here in the kitchen with Chef Kelly for the recipe of the week, and we're going Cuban.
Yes, we're going Cuban. Yeah, because I want to try to make a Cuban surf perch.
Wow, that's pretty popular. Well, it should be popular.
Yes, it should be popular. You know, it's razor clam season right now, and guys should be nipping off the top of those necks and then using those surf perch.
Yeah, for bait.
Yes, for bait. Just
see, I learned.
Don't trust the ocean. Always remember to keep an eye on it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to be making a Cuban style surf perch, and we're going to fry up some tostones or fried plantains, however you want to say it. Traditionally, they call them tostones, and we'll make a mojo sauce, which is a traditional dipping sauce with the tostones.
Mojo with tostones.
Yes. Cuban style.
Fried plantains.
Right? Speaking about plantains, we're going to have to deal with this plantain here. This is it's not a banana, okay? So you're looking at it, oh, it's a type of banana. It might be, but it's very, very starchy, so don't think of it as a sweet thing. And you have to deal with it on how you have to peel it. So let's start with
how do you
that.
pick one?
Well,
how do you know it's ripe?
You want to just try to feel if it's firm,
Okay.
It's kind of iffy on these, major grocery stores.
The turnover isn't that high.
Yeah. So just kind of peel them. Just kind of run your thumb down there like this. Don't cut your thumbs off.
So it doesn't peel off like a banana?
No, it doesn't peel at all like a banana.
Okay.
Unfortunately. It would be nice.
Okay, we'll just go with it's not a banana, Sherry.
It's not a banana. And so if you want to get ahead and prep these ahead of time, you could stick them in some water.
It loosens it up?
No, it just keeps it from browning, because if you do it's sort of like a potato. If you cut a whole bunch of potatoes and then just let them out, they're going to turn brown on you.
Right.
Okay, so this, remember that.
You said it's like a starch.
Yeah, it's very starchy. Okay, so the thing you have to do with plantains is that you need to traditionally kind of cut them into like big chunks like this guy.
Okay.
Like that.
Inch and a half or?
Yeah, something like that, right? And you're gonna fry this in like a low temperature oil for like until they get kind of golden brown at like 300 degrees. Okay, so what we're shooting for is something like this. So this is cooked, but you just want to cook it at a low temperature. So after we get to there, we're just going to take I usually find like a dish like this, kind of good sized, has a little shallow divot, and then I just kind of crush it so that it looks like this.
Flatten it like a pancake.
Flatten like, what, quarter of an inch?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's what we're doing there. That's how you deal with the plantain.
All right.
Okay, so now let's deal with our fish. So we got these beautiful fillets here.
Quite big for perch, right?
I was going to say, I don't know how many times I've caught surf perch and go, the size of my whole fish was this fillet, and I'm going, wow. Yeah, but just keep after them, just keep chasing around. You'll find those bigger ones out there. They're out there.
Well, they're really tasty.
And they're really super aggressive too. If you
so they're fun.
Oh yeah, it's super fun. If you're not getting hit like immediately, like within a few seconds, literally, then they're not there. They're so aggressive that they're going to be right on it.
Okay.
Okay, so fresh ground pepper, kosher salt.
Kosher salt.
Okay, now we're going to dip them in a little bit of corn flour.
Not cornmeal.
Not cornmeal. I mean, if you want to do the cornmeal thing, sure, whatever. But I like corn flour a little bit better. Has a little bit of crunch, but doesn't have that really aggressive crunch that cornmeal does.
Yeah, you're just putting a light coat in. That's why you're not doing like a liquid first.
Yes,
okay.
I just want a light little crunch.
Okay.
Okay, so our pan's nice and hot. Yep. We'll get a little bit of oil in there.
Oil going.
Okay, excellent. Always drop fish away from you like this. As you saw that there's a little bit of oil splash, but it went that way. Away from you. Okay, if you can take care of this right here.
Yep.
Okay, so while that is working, we're gonna work on our mojo. Okay?
Mojo.
Mojo. This is orange juice. That's one orange. We're gonna add half a lime. Traditionally, they would use sour orange, but sour orange is not very available here in. Well, I mean, unless you live in Florida.
Maybe Florida. Yeah.
Okay. This is half an onion.
Okay.
Okay.
Sour orange, huh?
Yeah. A little bit of oregano. These are all very traditional flavors.
Yeah.
Right here. Okay.
Stuff you have.
A bit of salt. Black pepper. And another thing that's very, very traditional is the Cubans love garlic.
Garlic, yeah.
I mean, they go a little bit crazy on it. And so we're going to go pretty heavy.
Well,
so
you know I love the garlic.
We're going to do like 5 cloves. I mean, you can go even heavier than that. That's not, crazy for the Cubans.
Okay.
Okay, so let that go.
Getting a little golden color to it.
A little golden color to it.
Wow, that looks awesome.
We're just going to set that aside. I think the residual temperature will get us there.
We'll go ahead and take care of it.
Okay. And of course, the Cubans love extra virgin olive oil.
All right. Yep. This recipe is really just the basic ingredients that you have in your kitchen.
Yeah. You know?
Well, except for the plantains.
Except for plantains. You may have to hunt those down. Let's go ahead and taste this.
Okay.
See where we're at.
Got you a spoon right there, do you?
Yeah, I gotta get it.
All right.
Looks pretty.
Mm-hmm. Kosher salt. Knew it.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
And we're gonna do the full lime.
Go full lime.
Go full lime. All right.
Mix it back up.
So before we start that, let's go ahead and drop our tostones.
I'll flatten it out and ready to go.
Yep.
And you said like 350?
375 because we're just crisping them up because they're already done.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead and finish this for a second. Here, take that for a second.
Okay. Whoops.
All right. One last taste.
Can I dish that up?
Much better. Okay, go ahead. Can you put that in there?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to add just a little pat of butter.
That was butter?
Yeah, that's just a little bit of butter, a little bit of garlic, and a little bit of that oregano.
Okay.
All right, we're almost ready to play.
Yeah.
Okay, always with your fried foods, you're going to season them up, a little bit of salt. Just nothing different.
This didn't take long, couple minutes.
Yeah. God, that smells good with the garlic in there.
Yeah. Nice fillets. I always love your presentations. They're just amazing. Oh. Can't wait to try my first plantain.
Right?
Yep.
You're going to put a little bit of that to the top. Oh, yeah. Not hurting a thing.
Nope. I need a little spoon for that.
Okay. And then a little bit of our mojo sauce.
Mojo sauce.
Mojo sauce.
Cuban mojo sauce. I like.
Okay, a little bit of pickled red onions for a little pop of color.
Gotta have that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I'm sure the flavor is just incredible on there.
Oh, yeah. And they just look so pretty on the plate, too. You know, a little bit of oregano, too. How you like that?
I love it. Yes.
Guys, try some surf perch out. They're just fantastic. You know, it's nothing really that exotic, and you know, except for like you said, the plantains. And I told you how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a traditional mojo sauce.
It looks awesome, and while we're going to dig into this, we're going to throw it back to the guys in the studio.
There you go. That would be the Cuban surf perch and mojo sauce, Kramer, with plantains.
I am doing that. I'm doing that next week.
Yeah.
That looks so good.
It's actually, it's not too difficult to do and really, really good. Actually, every recipe Chef has done has just been amazing. And he's going to show up here in about a week and a half, and we got a host of new recipes we're doing.
I love
Lots of fish. Got to start clearing the freezer out. It's almost springtime time to go after and get, you know, fresh bounty stuffed in the freezer.
Hey, we had good fish tonight, thanks to the wife.
The halibut was not too bad.
That was awesome.
We get
Isn't that
spoiled.
delicious? If you haven't got yourself a Traeger and haven't done halibut on the Traeger, that smoky flavor on that halibut is something else. So, all right, we're going to jump out for a quick break. When we come back, David, we got you in the hot seat. We are jumping into this. We are going to cover a host of things, break it down a little bit more, hatchery reform, harvest, hydro, habitat, and what I like to refer to as handle predation, right? So we have
A lot of H's.
some key topics to talk about. When we come back, we'll get into some hatchery reform and some harvest discussion. I think that's going to be eye-opening for a lot of folks. So don't go anywhere. Stick through here on the commercial. We'll be back with David Troutt In-Studio right here on FHN.
A Northwest favorite for almost 40 years, Arima boats are manufactured with pride right here in Bremerton, Washington. Arima Boats offers all of our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. With literally thousands of Arima boats on the water throughout the Pacific Northwest, Arima boats are a proven hull design that offers incredible fuel economy and all of the amenities that a serious angler is looking for. All Arima boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why we back our boats with a lifetime warranty. All of our Arima boats are designed to maximize deck space while also providing ample seating. Contact us today at Arima Boats for all your boating needs and let us help you get out on the water.
Welcome back in studio, Duane Inglin, with my co-host, man of many words, Steve Kramer, in the house. David Troutt, staying with us. Didn't get up and walk out on me at commercial
I did not
break.
bolt yet.
I appreciate that. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. Speaking of bolts, let's talk a little bit about hatchery reform relative to the Nisqually program. There's been years where you guys are dumping 2 million Chinook in. There's years where we're hitting at 4 million. Where do you find balance in, when we're talking Puget Sound Chinook, ESA listings, how many Chinook can we put into our rivers, especially now that we're talking about boosting the numbers relative to Puget Sound, Orca recovery, ideally salmon recovery. How do you guys gauge whether you're being counterproductive or productive in the realm of bringing back wild fish?
Right. So there's a lot there to unpack, and maybe going back to the analogy of the cup in the glass, we have the small cup now, and we're pretty confident, science is telling us, that across Puget Sound we're at capacity for salmon production. So what do we do quickly within the confines that we have, given the current capacity of Puget Sound, to make a difference with hatchery fish? And so we recognize that there are two big limitations that are affecting southern resident killer whales, and they're affecting our fishery and your fisheries as well. And that is a timing issue of release and return, and the size of the fish. We've definitely affected the timing of the release and returns, and we've talked about that, how the Green River fish are really constrained both ways. But over the last 10 years, as a result of hatchery intervention and environmental conditions, the average size of Chinook has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And so we're producing Chinook now that are just average size coho. Back 20 years ago, 15, 20 pound coho were pretty common, and Chinook were 30 and 40 pounds. And now it's hard to find a 30 pound Chinook when the Chinook are averaging 9.5 to 10 pounds.
So we were getting out in the bay. Those fish, they're beauties. They're wonderful fish.
Sure.
They eat good. They fight good. They're healthy. But you're right that there'd be a nice coho is what they'd be.
Right, exactly. So these southern residents have evolved to chase and eat big Chinook.
So fish.
Right, over generations. And now they're being asked to chase coho, in essence, equivalent of coho. And so there's not enough, and the caloric value isn't good, so they're starving, and the toxics get them, and then they're trying too hard to catch the fish, and it's just a bad combination. So we're looking at hatchery production within the current constraints on how do we solve those issues and provide benefit back to our fisheries. And so we're looking at and experimenting with release timing to see if we can make a difference with release timing. I think the most exciting thing we're working on now, though, that we've started 2 years ago, this will be our third spawning season, is to experiment with the size of Chinook. Is there something we can do to produce bigger Chinook? Can we get back to an average of 15 to 20 pounds and the occasional 30 to 40 pound fish? So the last few years we've been, with a very small lot, I think it's been about 100,000 or 150,000 fish, taking the biggest males and the biggest females and spawning them, individually tagging them with separate tag codes so we can track them over time, and then in the next 3 and 4 years to see if we're actually getting bigger average fish. I suspect we will, because it's just basic genetics and husbandry. And so if that's the case, then we'll continue to move that program forward, probably implement it across all of our hatchery programs, being careful we don't run into some genetic bottlenecks, and you have to be careful about that.
Sure.
But really with the notion of producing bigger fish, and then also fish over longer periods of time. We don't want them to all come back in one quick period. We want them to come back over a longer return rates or return timing. So we're working on those things in the Nisqually. So we're currently producing about 4 million Chinook in the Nisqually. About 1 million of them we transfer over to our McAllister facility, and 3 million get released out of the Nisqually River. And so this year the forecast back to the Nisqually is about 17,000 hatchery fish and about 1,000 natural fish, more or less. So 18,000 fish there, and about 8,000 fish in McAllister coming back from the releases there. The McAllister fishery is a complete wipeout fishery, no escapement needs. So recreational opportunity, tons of it there at McAllister Creek and out in front in the marine waters. And then our tribal fishermen are fishing in the creek and upstream from there with the intent of catching 7,000 fish if we can.
Right.
And then we'll seed it again from our Clear Creek production over at Nisqually every year.
Would you say the forecast for Nisqually was?
I think it's about 17,000 hatchery fish, more or less. It's down over the last few years. The survival for South Sound Chinook has been decreasing.
3 million smolt equal 17,000 returning adults. What would that be, guessed, like on a coastal stream? I mean, anything that doesn't involve Puget Sound, would it be double that possibly?
Well, natural survival is typically fairly low anyway. But I can go back to the 90s when hatchery survival for Chinook was high. We were getting 2 to 3% survival, 30 to 40,000 Chinook back in the Nisqually. Survival last year was about 0.5% for Chinook.
Oh my goodness!
And
Isn't
that's pretty common.
17,000 one of the lower numbers we've seen in a number of years here on the
This might be our lowest forecast for
think
Chinook
so.
returning.
I mean, it seems like we've been hovering around, 22, 24, 28. I think maybe in 2015 we're up around 35,000.
Right.
Now we're at half that.
Right, and it's dropping in all of South Sound, and from the Green to the Deschutes, we're seeing survival getting worse and worse, and the cup is getting smaller for Chinook, and so we've got to do something quickly to increase that capacity.
Well, we kind of talked about it too at dinner and during the break in the show here. It's, there is something to this ocean condition phenomenon, and I just kind of said it there. If I think about what I just said, in the last 5 years, we've seen the Nisqually hatchery survivability on your Chinook almost fall in half. In the last 5 years, we've seen ocean conditions that have not been favorable to the survivability of fish. Matter of fact, wiping out runs considerably. Right. And so when you can take a specific watershed and see that rapid of a decline in a 5-year pattern, there's cause for concern. And I would say, especially, Duane, in a watershed where we have significantly improved the freshwater habitat. Absolutely.
We've restored 90% of the estuary. There are very few places in Puget Sound that can say that. We've got 77% of the anadromous zone permanently protected in permanent stewardship. So it's getting better and older and more complex, and yet the fish aren't coming home.
And the upper stretches of the Nisqually that make up that entire Nisqually system are some of the most pristine, still unmolested watersheds that these fish return to and spawn naturally and rear. And, the habitat in a lot of cases is really good up there comparatively.
Yes. Right. You might think you're on Olympic Peninsula when you're floating in the Nisqually.
Yeah. And yet we're having these problems, and ocean survivability, I think, is becoming more, as a front runner, as a huge contributor to the decline of all these species of fish that we're seeing, right? So,
and think about ocean survival not just in the Pacific Ocean, but South Sound, Puget Sound itself, and then the Pacific Ocean. All of it is changing in ways that's just not supporting salmon survival. I think last year, Ecology said we had the warmest waters in Puget Sound ever recorded. And these things are just compelling.
And it's changing fast.
And
that's
it's changing
the thing.
fast.
It is
faster than the fish can adapt.
Yes, if it's spread over 30, 40 years, we're seeing a gradual change. 4 years, 5 years. It went from to oh crap.
Right.
Just like that, in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Well, and there's other indicators too as to what's going on. When it's like a double-edged sword. There's a lot of excitement and stuff going on out there with our tuna fisheries and the strange different types of fish that are moving north with the warm water currents that are flushing up. And you get these opportunities on bluefin to the numbers that we'd never seen before. And some of the other, and we've had reports of great whites and other things going on out in the ocean that is like, hey, that's pretty cool. But in the reality, it's like, that's really concerning at the end of the day. And then as they map it out over the last 10 years, have our ocean temperatures, it's like, if they warm up and fall back to cool temperatures, great. If they warm up and then fall a little bit short of getting clear back to where they should be by 0.5 degree. And 2 years later, they add another 0.5 degree. And 10 years down the road, you're actually 2 degrees warmer annually than you were 10 years. And that's what's going on.
Yeah, if you chart it out, you probably have a curve that's moving upward.
Yes.
But you get the occasional where it appears to be getting cooler, you're right. But the overall trend is still
heading up. Yeah. So, we're up against it in that regard. And I'm a little shocked to hear that when you said 17,000 from Nisqually. I mean, it's in my backyard. I've been fishing since I was a kid, and I pretty much one of those Puget Sound rivers that we still have opportunity on for the fall, early fall bob and egg opportunities, where I always start out, me and some buddies, and it's something you look forward to. And when I hear we're at 17,000 this year, I'm like, whoa, wait a second, that is concerning for me, knowing the history of that river and the program you guys have been running for so long, right? So, let's talk salmon recovery and harvest. You were very candid in our previous conversation in August, talking about alternative methods the Nisqually tribe was, looking to implement. You and I have these conversations, and I'll say it, with not trying to offend anybody. I'm like, how do we talk conservation and gill nets in the same sentence? And how do we talk, conservation and gill nets, as I opened the show with, relative to the impacts on steelhead when we know it's a constraining run a fish, but yeah, we're going to exercise, not you guys, but WFW fully, we're going to exercise this gill net fishery, non-discriminate, non-selective. How do we, let me put it out there this way. Are those discussions relevant? Do they happen between co-managers? Like, we as a group collectively, if we're serious about conservation on the table, have to start talking about selective year measures in the realm of harvest, or is that one that there's other things to tackle first?
There's a lot to be tackled.
Sure.
And selective harvest is certainly a conversation that needs to go forward. The Nisqually tribe, we've said 17,000 more or less hatchery fish coming back and 1,000 natural fish.
Right.
And so our limitation will be based on the number of adipose fins that come back to the river.
What's your percentage of impact on 1,000 fish coming back?
The 1,000 back to the river, our overall exploitation rate in all fisheries is 47% of the natural fish.
Right.
I think we're left with usually around 15% or 14% when it gets back to the Nisqually River.
Okay.
So whatever that turns out to be, some number of natural fish. And even though the hatchery run is low, the natural fish is way lower, and it'll still limit our ability to catch hatchery fish.
Right.
Yep. So this year, when we look at the season we may end up with, although we're just starting in north of Falcon, we're probably going to catch 6,000 or 7,000 Chinook at the end of the day. We only need 4,000 or 5,000 in the hatchery, so that's still a bunch of fish that are being uncaught.
Right.
And our fishermen, my fishermen, are frustrated by that.
Sure.
And in a good year, when we average 15,000 adult surplus in the hatchery, that's 15,000 fish they didn't catch that they could have caught.
Right.
And should have caught, because that's why we're producing those fish, is for us to catch and for whales to eat. So our fishermen want to find ways to be able to catch more of those fish. The challenge is trying to find a way that works for them within their cultural practices and works for the fish that you can release them unharmed. Right. So we're taking on a number of experiments, looking at different gear types within the river and with our fishermen to try to find out which ones make the most sense for them. We've tried Tangle Net, and Tangle Net just didn't work when we tried it. We're going to try it again, but our first 3 or 4 years of experimenting with it, the bycatch was horrible. And our fishermen were catching cutthroat and juvenile Chinook and juvenile steelhead and hated the idea that these fish were dying.
Because the mesh size is so much smaller.
The mesh size is so much smaller.
Than your standard 8 to 9 inch mesh size for Chinook. Tangle Net's down to what, 6 inch mesh or 4 inch mesh?
4 inch mesh.
Oh, wow.
And
so
it's
you're
not
grabbing all that little stuff.
And it's not a single plane, it's a wall. So it's mixed and meshed. So there could be very small openings in some points. And so small steelhead and cutthroat will get caught in it. And our fishermen hated that. They hated the idea they were killing these fish.
Right.
And so we didn't do that anymore, which meant we had to restrict our season, let a lot more fish go by. So now we've looked at a number of things. We've looked at traditional weirs. We made a cedar weir.
Love that idea.
I remember when you talked about that before, and
it was fantastic. And not only does it look very cool, but it worked. It worked well in the tributary. It was a hatchery tributary. We were able to catch hatchery fish, release wild fish. It worked perfectly.
Survivability is extremely high.
Extremely high.
And it's, it's selective. I've
Completely
been pro
selective.
wheel or pro weir forever. Like Shane Anderson did that flick on that one down in Columbia.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Almost 100% successful return of the bycatch.
And your tribal members are staffing and running the weir. You're sorting and selecting fish.
My tribal staff are doing that. Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, it's a win for everybody. You got fish that you can take to market. You got wild fish that you're releasing upriver to spawn naturally.
Right.
And you're probably collecting more of the hatchery fish than with some of the gill net practices, based on you can extend it later in the season because you don't get up against your impacts, correct?
Right.
Is anybody else doing that, weirs, that you know of?
Not that I know of. I think we're the only ones looking at this stuff
at the
moment. But at some point, if it makes sense and the fishermen will embrace it, it can spread.
Thank you. That's all I can say. I've been preaching that for years.
Well,
it's wonderful.
We're trying. And so another one that may be a little more controversial with you gentlemen is that we're looking at using gill nets as a selective tool itself. So we currently gill net fish. My staff does a gill net fishery to determine composition of the run size, and we do it fairly far upstream. It's at river mile 15 or so. And what we've noticed, though, is that as we're drifting with these gill net, we can catch Chinook, get them to the bank, work them up, get them out of the net, and release them when they survive. And so we think that if we use the right mesh in the right kind of fishery with staff assistance, that we can use our traditional gear and still have a selective kind of fishery. So this year and next year, we're going to be working with our fishermen to do some drifts with traditional gill net with staff assistance to run through a drift, catch fish. If you get a fish on, get it to the bank. If it's a hatchery fish, kill it. If it's a wild fish, we let it go. And we're going to radio tag them. We're going to determine if they're surviving. We're going to see where they're going and check out their spawning.
I mean, to truly gauge their survivability after release, it's like they could swim off, but if that's a dead fish 4 hours later, then what's the success? But if you're gonna tag them, so you can truly track if they do make it upriver, if they do make it to spawn, I mean that's a game changer, and that's truly utilizing today's technology and science collectively. Now, currently, when tribal fishermen are drift netting, are they not using a gill net?
They are.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
So we're going to use the exact same gear they're currently using because they're familiar with it,
okay.
and see if we can release Chinook out of that kind of fishery like we've done as a staff fishery, and see if it works.
Okay.
And if it does, that may be a really valuable tool for us.
You're gauging success on that on the survivability.
Yes.
If your mortality rate is too high, you have to take a step back and go, this is not the end goal we're striving for.
It's called an experiment. We're experimenting.
But I love it. You're trying new things. Is there a downfall of the weir? I have to step back for 1 second. Is there a downfall of...
It seems to work on a small tributary. We haven't tried it on the main stem river itself, and it's very different than a traditional fishery. And so it may be more of a community-based effort than an individual-based effort. And our fishery right now is very individual-based. And so we need to find ways to keep our fishermen on the river. And maybe we have lots of challenges in salmon recovery, and one of them is making sure we don't have too many hatchery fish spawning in the wild.
Right.
Our recovery effort in the Nisqually is very complicated, and we don't have time to go into it in detail. But at some point, we're going to have to remove the hatchery influence from the wild population. In 2025, we've committed to removing the hatchery fish. We're going to have to do that through a number of different ways, and one of them may be a fisherman's weir, a community weir, to selectively fish and remove the hatchery fish that way. I want to hit on one point, though, about the gill net fishery. We target impacts based on sustainability.
Right.
I'm talking about the Nisqually, but this is the case in most places as well in Puget Sound. And so whether we kill the fish in a selective fishery or in just a straight gill net fishery, a dead fish is a dead fish.
Right.
And so we're limited to, for example, in the Nisqually, let's just say, the numbers may not work out, but say we have 100 natural fish to kill in a fishery. We can kill those and catch 3,000 hatchery fish, or we can kill those and catch 10,000 hatchery fish. But at the end of the day, we're still going to kill 100 natural fish.
Right.
So the whole effort is to sustainably manage the wild fish, but catch as many of the hatchery fish as possible. So the gill net is an effective tool. It comes down to management, making sure we're managing for the right goals and objectives, that we understand the size of the cup in all of our watersheds, and we're managing appropriately. And that's a constant adaptive management kind of thing. But the gill nets are not evil, it's just a tool. And a dead fish in a gill net is just like a dead fish on a hook and line. It's a dead fish. And we count the living bejeebers out of our harvest. We monitor, and my crew, if you're watching, these guys do 60 to 80% of the harvest is monitored and sampled.
Right.
That's remarkable.
Oh, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
I've often patted you on the back, your staff, and what you guys have strived for the past 20 to 30 years. You set the tone in Puget Sound in how you manage and monitor your fisheries. I've talked to your tribal fishermen down there on the gravel bars they're bringing in their catch. I've talked to the biologists, taking scale samples and clipping fins and doing their data and their research. I've talked to the biologists who have got me to understand that, well, we're sampling run size right now because if it performs this way, we're going to keep fishing, but we're kind of thinking it's going this way, we're going to cut back to 2 days per week. Or we're going to be done fishing. I mean, and just making it known that we are basing our fisheries off of sample sizing, biology, and run performance, right? And if you guys, and you've been very candid and open about that, once you hit up against your threshold on your wild fish, you're done fishing. And credit to your community because your folks understand that. And
they run a tight ship. It's great.
Yeah, and I don't, and I've often said I wish more of the tribal fisheries would follow the model you guys are setting in some of these areas. I'm not saying not all of them are striving for success, but I think you guys are out in front of a lot of stuff you're doing. And, I get the tradition. I respect the tradition. I mean, tribal tradition and ceremony and all the things that they stand for goes back long before our time, and you have to respect that. And gill nets are a means of their tradition, right? And we as recreational fishermen don't always understand it, or we think it's a means of to the end, but discriminately used, properly and monitored, and the way you guys target, And really, your stopgap is truly when you come up against your deadline of the fish you can impact. I get it. I would like to see all fisheries transition to some form of selective harvest. I think we all would. I mean, the fact if we can have the conversation, I'm encouraged. And if gill nets were to be like allocated towards ceremonial subsistence type stuff for like tribal members in ceremonies, that's cool because it's part of their tradition. But I think as we work towards selective harvest measures and the fact we can have the conversation, I feel like we're kind of dipping our toe into that dirty conversation that seems like some people don't want to have, David. And I really appreciate you actually sitting down and having this discussion. I really do.
And we may be thinking about it in different ways, but the end result, from my perspective, is still the same. We want to catch as many fish as we possibly can that's sustainable. And if it means we have to think about selective ways to get there, my community is open to the ideas. Now, at the end of the day, it's their decision, and we may not find something that works for them, and they may say, sorry, and then we're going to have a lot of surplus fish we're going to have to deal with. But I think that we'll find something that will work for them, and they'll implement it, and maybe others will see the benefit of that as well.
Finding balance, all working together, and at the end of the day, we're trying to find common ground and bring fish back.
We're all on the same team. That's the thing. It's always them versus us versus them. Everybody's always fighting. It's like
those days need to be long gone.
We're to the point now that doesn't count no more. That doesn't work. We are all the same team. We're all fighting for the same thing, and people want to divide us. They want to us and them, and it doesn't work.
Well, it's easy to point blame and not look at you.
Exactly.
So
and when we're running out of fish, and we're running out of time. And so we have to be together on this, or we're not going to have fish for either of us.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, good stuff. We got a few more things to tackle when we come back. Later on the show, we're going to talk about hydros and dam. Is that truly a solution or viable solution to some of our problems? We're going to talk about habitat. It's one of those that is key, albeit it is difficult to achieve some of these goals, right? And there's a lot of money involved in that as well. So we'll talk about some of these bigger ticket items later in the show. But you jump out for a break. Kramer, you're up. When we come back, we're going to jump into the bait lab.
Bass.
We're going to talk a little bit about bass, get you all excited.
I'm going to learn something.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't go anywhere. Spring is just around the corner. Kramer's in the house. We're going to talk some transitional techniques you'll want to keep track of and write down some notes. We're going to start early season spring, kind of as these critters get ramped up with a little warming of water temperature. And Kramer's going to transition you on into the first couple months into spring when they really start getting active, and it can be a lot of fun. So don't go anywhere. Stick around through the break. We come back. We'll be in the bait lab with Steve Kramer and what you need to know to get your spring bass on right here on FHN.
Defiance boats are built without any structural wood materials. That is why we back our boats with a lifetime warranty. All of our Defiance boats come standard with large fish boxes that are fully insulated so that you can ice your fish properly all day. Defiance boats feature a 21 to 22 degree dead rise at the transom and a large reverse chine for incredible handling and stability offshore. Defiance boats are foam flotation filled and unsinkable for the ultimate in safety while fishing offshore. Defiance boats feature fuel-efficient hull designs with large fuel tank capacity so that you can have maximum fuel range for making long offshore runs completely safe and affordable. All Defiance boats come standard with self-bailing decks for improved safety while at sea. Defiance Boat offers all our boats with Honda outboard packages so that you can take full advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty from your Honda outboard. Defiance boats for all your boating needs, and let us help you get out on the water.
Hey, welcome back, Fish on Northwest. We're here in the bait lab, and got me a guest in the bait lab. Usually I get stuck doing this stuff all by myself.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I'm glad you're here. You got quite a variety of options here as we talk about bass fishing. And I want to remind you that each and every week, at least when we can get it or fit it in, Presentations here in the Bait Lab brought to you by Max Lure. Check them out, everything they got as we roll into the springtime, get into some of this trout and kokanee fishing. You're going to be on walleye. You're going to follow everything we got going on relative to Max. So appreciate them being on board. That being said, Kramer, we got 4 fishing rods here dangling different soft plastic types of devices. You got a bunch of lures out here on the table, and you got some worms and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, and we got steelhead worms. And we're talking bass fishing. So
bass gobble these up. I don't care.
We are February 27th. Today was about 60 degrees.
Yes.
Right? February is not too early to start talking bass.
It is not too early, especially since they've opened some of these local lakes year round.
Yeah. Especially here in Thurston County.
The first year they opened Long Lake early. Yeah. Long Lake, everybody knows Long Lake has big bass in it. Guys were coming down from Everett, coming down from Marysville to target Long Lake, and they were throwing big swim baits.
Like in February, March?
February, March. Right now, guys are out there fishing the ends of docks, slow rolling a swim bait, and I mean slow, really, really slow. If you have something that suspends, reel it past the end of a dock real slow and let it park. Park it for 30 seconds.
Just let it hover there.
Park it for a minute. Yeah. Let it sit. If it's sunny out and you're watching, you'll see them come out from under the dock and look at it.
Those critters are already up under docks in that shallow water this time of year.
It's a shallower lake. When you get these warmer days, they're up moving. The females, they need to start eating the big ones. This is when you get the 6s, 7s, and 8s. You're not getting 2s. You're not getting 3s. It's the big females coming up. Right now, my preference is a swim bait show. Like I've got these from Unique Baits. Amazing, amazing swim baits. If you're smallmouth fishing, you throw the kokanee style. If you're in a lake that has
what that is? So this would be like a trout or a shad?
I throw that for largies. I throw that for smallies.
Smallmouth.
Big swim baits for smallmouth. Most guys don't do that. It's amazing.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, you can fish jigs. You can fish. I've got one rigged up here. Just a spider grub. Yeah. You know, works for smallies. Works for largies. If you put this on like a 1-ounce football head, if you were at Lake Washington right now, fishing under the east channel of I-90, 40, 45 feet of water, you're getting 20-pound bags of smallmouth right now.
Oh, is that right? So what's my presentation on that? Am I throwing that out in deeper water?
You're out in deep water. You're finding a deep flat about 40, 45 feet, and you drag it slow. Everything this time of year is slow. Just slow it down.
Because the water's a little cooler.
Water's cool. To get active. They're coming up. They're trying to fatten up. Again, I like water mid-50s. You start really having some fun.
Is this a throw it out, let it sink, touch bottom,
drag, throw it out,
lift it up slowly, let it drop? Or?
I don't even let it drop. I hit bottom, I put my tip down, and I drag just slow, and then park it. Drag slow, park it, and you'll just feel the slightest. Boop. They don't hit hard.
Oh.
Same with these swim bait bites.
Just picking it up.
You'll just feel a weight. They don't grab it, it's just a weight, your rod will load.
Okay. Water temperature seems, excuse me, to be a key. So as we kind of transition through water temperatures, what's my transition of presentation? And when am I working the docks? When am I jumping back out to that 15-foot flat that gets me that 30-foot drop-off?
So for smallmouth, you start working that flat, you start working the drop-off 48 to 52, I start spending time on it. Depending on the depth, like a deep diving suspending jerk bait, jerk, 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 sit for a minute. It feels like an hour. Usually when you give it that next jerk, it's there. It's there, boom, on it. With a largemouth, I hit 52 to 55, I'm skipping docks. I'm throwing Cincos, which we've got one rigged up right here.
52 to 55.
52 to 55.
No weight, just a Cinco.
Just a Cinco. I rig a wacky style more often than not. If it's brushy, I'll rig it Texas style.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping this basic. For the average guy, $200, you can be a bass stud. Just the local lakes get big quality bass.
7.5 foot rod, spinning rod, nothing fancy.
Nope, basic.
You fish mono on there? You got any braid?
Some rods I run braid. I got mono on my Cinco rod. I mean, just a Fluger President. This is a Shimano Symmetry, an older one.
Okay, yeah.
You don't need anything fancy. 10, 12 pound test. Skip docks with these. Again, slow. Everything's slow. 56 to 58, you start seeing fish on beds. Depending on the lake. Local, I will say, last week in April lately has been really good the last few years. And you get big largemouth on beds. Long Lake, Pattison Lake, Black Lake. And then you're sight fishing. Then you bring out the drop shots, which, you know, that real basic technique, leads on the bottom. You got one of my favorites. This is more of a smallmouth rig right here, but you can cast them out. It parks on the bed, shake, 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 and it drops. Pick it up, shake, 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 and that's about it, and they eat it. It's
slow sinking.
It sinks on, so you pick the rod tip up, you shake the slack, drop your tip.
And your weight is what?
Weight is, I'm using a little Mojo weight. This is a little, probably an 1/8 ounce.
1/8 ounce, okay.
And it changes with depth, obviously.
Yeah.
Skipping docks is the easiest, so Cincos. If a guy just went and bought some, all you need to do, you don't need to know anything. Buy some Cincos, skip some docks, 55 to 62 degree water, you're getting fish.
Right.
It just cast out, let it sink. Once it hits bottom, give it a twitch, twitch, let it sink again, reel it in, hit the next spot. Look for cover, pilings, logs, any type of structure a largemouth will be around.
Is any of these techniques, up until we hit about that 50 degree water mark, as slow as pro? It's like you just want to keep things going.
You want as slow as you can. Smallmouth especially love a pause, a long pause. It drives them nuts. I've seen them with the suspending jerk baits. I've watched them come up and pivot completely, like they have side thrusters. It's the craziest thing. They'll pivot around it and they stare. And you're just shaking. You're just like, oh my goodness, he's going to eat it. And
it's not until you give it that
You give them a little twitch and they snap. It's like a cat chasing a laser pointer. Boom.
Right. Any particular colors? I mean, indoor, some of our lakes here are a little more stained than others. Right. Obviously, some in my backyard is like gin clear.
Gin clear.
You go over to Black Lake, coffee tea stained, right?
Coffee tea stained. I like the darker colors. And again, all around, I like darker colors for bass. This, I know the steelhead worm, I catch a lot of bass in the spring on this.
That's crazy.
Pre-spawn, Texas rig, no weight, so you rig it weedless.
Clear water, full sunny day. You throw that?
Yes.
Seriously?
My boy got an 8-1 at a long last year.
Seriously? On a bubblegum pink?
Bubblegum pink, they absolutely hammer it.
Okay.
And this is just a little zoom trick worm, but if you rig it with a small, like a 3/0, twitch, 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 it jerks super erratic.
Gotcha.
And then it just sinks like a Cinco would.
So water clarity, full sun versus cloudy days, little breeze with chop on the top versus flat calm. In other words, I'm talking extreme light penetration versus filtered light. Any difference? You're still going with darker colors? Or?
Yes, I like darker colors no matter what. If it's sunny and it's calm, it's a sight fishing show for me.
Right.
Fish don't bite quite as good. The high pressure kind of turns them off. It's a sight fishing thing. You cruise the flats, again, late April, early May when fish are coming up to spawn.
Yeah.
If you've got a little bit of a breeze, that's when they're going to bite the best usually. They're not as spooky. Again, I would throw a little search bait, just a little, nothing fancy. You can buy a bag of these for $3 for 5 or 6 of them. You can slap a lead head in it, or you can just run it Texas style, and you just cast it and reel it real slow. Preferably wind-blown shorelines if they're up feeding, because pre-spawn they want to fatten up, and they just gobble up. I've seen them eat baby ducks.
Yeah.
I've seen them eat red-winged blackbirds. So yeah, any of that will work, but people make bass fishing too technical.
Right.
And it is. You can get really technical, and you can catch 10% more fish than I do if you're really focusing. But the average Joe, get some Cincos, get a couple swim baits.
I don't see any frogs.
Too early. Excuse me, I shouldn't say that. There was a 10 caught last year out of Black Lake in March.
On a frog.
On a frog. Super
Skipping
cold
the
water.
pads, right?
Yep, and it's in the aquarium
at
at
it
Cabela's.
is. Okay.
The guy told me they got it in 48 degree water. I didn't believe him. I'm like, I don't buy that on a frog. And you can see the dual frog hook mark in the top of its mouth. I said, I believe him.
Okay.
So they can do it, but...
What's that for you?
That's post-spawn.
55?
Oh, for frogs?
Yeah.
Post-spawn. Once the spawn's over, wait about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Right.
They calm down, they start to feed again, they'll be up in the pads morning and evenings. Frog bite is about the funnest thing you can do. It is an absolute blast.
Surface water explosion.
And if you're at Black Lake targeting smallmouth or Rife Lake, you put on a Zara spook and you fish flats, 10-foot deep flats.
Yeah.
And the smallmouth go nuts for top water. They go cuckoo for it.
Perfect. Well, all we got to do now is get out next couple weeks.
Soon. I will start, mid-March I'll start playing around.
Okay.
So
that's a couple weeks.
I know. I can't believe how fast the year's going. So.
Hopefully you find some of that useful. If you are not one that's getting out going after the greenfish, or as I used to refer to them as the ditch pickle, but I don't want to offend my friends. And so I actually have a lot of fun chasing bass now, and it's a good time. And it's one of those, diversity in your fisheries when a lot of our other things are kind of coming to a grinding halt on some fronts, that we got to go find other things to do. Fishermen and ladies are going to fish, and that's just kind of our nature. And anytime you take on something new that you're not familiar with, there's a learning curve, but once you kind of nail it down, build your patterns and find success, it's as rewarding as any other fishery that you've taken on, right?
It's fun. It's a renewable resource. These fish are super hardy. They can be caught over and over again. When they're spawning, throw them back. A big 7-8 pound largemouth, 15 years old, 17 years old. You can't kill it to get a picture and throw it in your freezer to show your friends. Then they'll all be these little stunted 2-pounders, and then the fishery
Respect the fishery.
Yeah.
So put them back so somebody else can get, or you can go catch it the next year because you know where she's going to be.
Yep. Hey, you catch a couple pounders, 2-pounders, you want to eat them? Eat them. They're great eating.
Yeah, they're tasty little buggers. All right, that's going to do it for us this week in the Bait Lab. Appreciate you stopping by and bringing in all this stuff, Kramer. We are definitely going to get out and hit these local bass ponds. We got a few of them here in Thurston County, so I'm pretty excited, right?
Yeah,
so
we do good.
Outstanding. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to close out the show again with David Troutt in studio. We got some more things to talk about and get through in the realm of salmon recovery. David's got a ton of information. We're going to actually put him back on the hot seat for a little bit before he finds his way out of here, if he doesn't leave during this break. So stick with us through the commercial. We'll be right back here in studio on FHN.
Marine is the one-stop shop for the Pacific Northwest angler. Whether you are looking for a small skiff to fish the Sound or rivers or a huge offshore tuna machine, Defiance Marine has it. At Defiance Marine, be sure to power your boat with a Honda outboard package. Take advantage of the reliability and 5-year top-to-prop warranty on your Honda outboards. Our service department is always here to help and serve you as the customer. Did you know Defiance Marine has boat financing experts to help get you the best term rates on your new boat purchase? If you need financing for that new boat, call us today. We guarantee the best price, best service on a repower for your current boat. Defiance Marine is a Honda Premier dealership and one of the largest on the West Coast. Defiance Marine also carries all the gear that you will need. Everything from auxiliary kicker motors to fishing tackle and bait. Defiance Marine has certified technicians that are top-notch at their job. Some of the best in the Pacific Northwest at evaluating your boat issues and problems. Stop in today or give us a call for all your needs at Defiance Marine.
At Metal Supermarkets, we understand your need for fast access to a wide variety of metals, so we've made it easy. Our network of stores carries a wide variety of metal in all different types, shapes, sizes, and grades, with no required minimum order size. Who could ask for more? Simply tell us your dimensions online, on the phone, or in store, and we'll cut or process the metal to your desired size, often while you wait. We offer same-day service and can deliver the metal right to your door or job site. We even source hard-to-find metals, so no matter what you're looking for, Metal Supermarkets can provide it for you. And we're conveniently located with brick-and-mortar stores in Seattle and Portland, so you can check out our extensive stock for yourself. Superior customer service is guaranteed. Quality service from real people who know metal. We are the small quantity metal experts. To place an order, simply call a store to talk to one of our knowledgeable customer service representatives. Fill out a quote request online, order off of our e-commerce website, or visit one of our many locations and pick out the metal you want. Whether you're a small or large business, government, homeowner, or hobbyist, we make it easy for you to buy the exact metal and just the amount you need. We've been doing this for over 30 years, so we know how to get it done. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal. Visit or call a Metal Supermarket store near you today.
What if there was a smarter way to search for your new home? Introducing the Better Homes and Gardens real estate website and mobile app. This revolutionary new search tool puts your needs first. Narrow your search to what matters most to your family, like school data, school districts, and even walk scores. Get easy access to your local affiliated agent, as well as unique and local insights about neighborhoods and properties directly within the app. With synced and saved preferences, you'll always pick up wherever you left off. Get your smarter search started today with Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate.
Welcome back in studio here, Fish Hunt Northwest. Duane Inglin, Steve Kramer, doing a fantastic job, co-host. Way to step it up tonight.
There we go.
Well, you took a little pressure off me. I didn't have to come up with a Bait Lab segment this week, and David's here, so the content's been easy because he's so smart. He just
I've learned so much tonight. But before the show, even talking at dinner, you're a hoot. I've learned so much.
You're a hoot.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
No, this has been a good one. I really enjoyed this.
No, this is great stuff. I always look forward to our conversations. Let's steer it towards hydro. Now, there's some discussions as of late. We got 4 dams on the Snake River that they're talking about the benefits to removing the earth portion of those dams. Some of our organized fishing groups are actually on board with wanting to see that happen. Governor Kate Brown out of Oregon has said, hey, this has to happen, and she's advocating to Governor Inslee that this happens. I know he allocated, I think it was $175,000 to go towards research and study of the removal of those dams, if it's beneficial to recovery. And you and I kind of talked, or we talked at dinner, there's things that are way high in the tree and there's lower hanging fruit. And we talk about predation and avian predation and, some of the hatchery reforms and things that are, to me, being a limited brain size that I am, seem a little more achievable on a lower level and at a cost that almost makes sense. Some of these major projects like removing dams seem to be extremely expensive, and I don't know if we don't take care of any of these other things, much like if we just keep throwing more hatchery fish into the bowl and don't do anything about the predation, at what cost and is there any benefit? So. Right. What are your thoughts on, okay, we're going to remove portions of the dam to allow natural water to flow at natural speed. We're going to out-migrate successfully maybe more smolt. Is the payoff worth the price?
Yeah, and that's the key question, really is the return worth the investment? And that's the question that really needs to be asked and scrutinized. If we invest X number of dollars in dealing with Snake River dams, what's the projected adult return? And what would happen if we invested that in a different way? Could we get similar kind of results? I'm not sure I know the answer to that. Right. I think it's something we need to seriously look at and ask. There's a lot of momentum building for doing something about the Snake River dams, and doing something there is going to be important. It's going to increase the size of the cup. It's going to give us a bigger cup in the snake. But if we do that and don't deal with the downstream issues, with the avian predation and the marine mammal predation, it's unknown how many adults will actually get back to the system. So we talk about integrating hatcheries with all of the work that we do. We really need to integrate everything we do. If we take one step in one direction, we've got to make sure that it makes sense in context of everything else we're doing. So if we're going to pull down dams, let's do it with the notion that we're also going to solve some of the downstream problems as well. Yeah.
Let's talk predation. Very, very, I don't want to say sensitive topic, but there's a lot of red tape to cut through when we're talking about predation control. Right. The Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972 has done a wonderful job in protecting marine mammals and bringing them back to the brink of, in my mind, a disaster because there's so many of them. Right. When I can read reports that indicate back when it was evaluated, there was 8,000 to 10,000 California sea lions. And in 2015, 2016, there's a report, well, there's 10,000 to 11,000, 10,500 California sea lions in the Columbia River from Bonneville to the estuary water. I think we've recovered. When I read reports that there's upwards of potentially 300,000 from California towards upper parts of Canada, I think we've recovered. So the hardest thing to do is to remove animal protection. Nobody wants to sign that docket. But at the end of the day, we've created a tremendous imbalance, not just with California sea lions, but stellars, all pinniped species throughout the South Sea and all around our waters here in Puget Sound. What does it take? Are the tribes I'm asking this question obviously for the masses to understand globally. Are the tribes in any better leveraging position when it comes to working with the feds to take action in removing whatever means that is, but removing the pinniped population down to a controllable status that is equal balance for the environment? Right.
Well, let me give a couple of answers here. I think that it's important that we do something about marine mammal predation because by doing nothing, we're making a choice that the seals and sea lions are going to win and that ultimately the salmon and the southern resident killer whales are going to lose. And so if that's the future we want, then let's just say that and let's go forward. but I don't think that's the future we want. So we're going to need to make some really difficult decisions. The tribes do have additional relationships, maybe different relationships with the federal government than the recreational community does or that the state does. And so there's certain things that we can do that maybe other groups can't do, but it comes at tremendous risk and cost.
Sure.
I look back to my friends at Macaw and what they've gone through trying to exercise their treaty rights to hunt whales.
For whaling, yes.
For a population, again, that has recovered and there are surplus animals available, and the litigation that they've had to go through, and it's been 15 years of uncertainty for them. If the tribes put their treaty rights out in front of these kind of things, there's always a risk that you're going to get a bad decision in a court, and then it might go through the appeals court, maybe you could get a bad decision there, and ultimately the Supreme Court, which we don't view as being very favorable right now. So to ask the tribes to do something that the rest of us have created as a society is really unfair. And putting the tribes at significant risk. This is something that the non-Indian society needs to step up and say, this is important to us, we need to make a decision. If we want salmon, if we want southern resident killer whales, if we want fishing opportunity, then we've got to manage this population. And it's a hard thing to do. They're cute and furry, and they have big brown eyes. And we name them. I mean, we all remember Herschel from the Ballard Locks. We give them names, and we have dolls that our kids carry around that are of seals and sea lions. We have to get past that. We have to manage this like we would manage any other kind of risk associated with these fish. If we're willing to take down 4 dams on the Snake River, why are we not willing to deal with this issue? We have to.
And that's why I wanted to ask you the question, because your answer is pretty passionate driven. And I agree. It's not like, well, we can't get it done. Let's just let the tribes do it. And you said it best. It's like, well, yeah, we're willing to engage in conversation. We all need to work together, but we're not willing to take the entire risk on our own. And I don't think we should expect you to as well. Our government, you know, in Washington State, and the federal government of the United States needs to step up and recognize the imbalance created by man and start doing something to rectify the issue. I know the tribes are willing to do so. Hunting practices or whatever means would be sought to exercise this. There's markets to use these animals, not just slaughter them and throw them, you know, for waste. There's a resolution out there that just needs to come together on a table with all players involved and figure out the best course of action to deal with it. You know, and I know the tribes collectively, it's on your guys' radar. This isn't something you're just turning an eye to going, well, let's just work on habitat and let's work on removing dams. No, you've made it very clear several times tonight, even at conversation at dinner, that the predation needs to be addressed. We just got to figure out how to get there.
The way I look at this after listening to you tonight, it's seals versus orcas is what it is.
Really, at the end of the day.
And that is not what's being brought up. All you hear in the news is, we need to bring more salmon out. We got to feed the orcas. The orcas are starving. The reason they're starving is what I'm realizing is we're feeding the seals.
And the birds.
And the birds.
Yep.
But the sea lions, for example, are literally eating the orcas' fish. So if the news would focus on that, people might understand it better. Not, let's just throw more fish at it like we talked. Like your example shows, we have the hourglass effect of, we plant this many fish, there's only this much food. Well, you can't change that. Get rid of the seals, and there'll be fish left for the whales.
So we have to be really thoughtful about how we do it, but
of course,
there's no reason why we can't manage this population at a level that sustains fisheries, sustains southern resident killer whales, sustains the transient whales, which feed on these seals as well. So we don't want to drive it so low that it affects their population. So we need to figure those numbers out. But I'm confident there's a place that we can do that if we're willing to do it as a society. And so far we haven't been, and that's the real frustration with all of us. You know, when I started on the Nisqually in 1987, we had one of the strongest wild runs of steelhead in Puget Sound. It was 6,000 to 8,000 fish strong. We talked about this at dinner. You used to fish it. You guys both fished it.
Phenomenal fishery.
And then in 1992, it dropped off the map to 500 fish. Every steelhead system in Puget Sound and the coast collapsed.
Plummeted, it was a big collapse.
But they've all more or less recovered to within 80 or 90% of their historic numbers, except for South Sound. And the reason is we've got this huge population of seals and sea lions sitting on their head, and they won't let them break through the window of being able to recover. We've done a bunch of acoustic tags, and we know that the journey for our fish through Puget Sound is only 13 days. Our steelhead go through really quickly, and they're not surviving. The mortality is somewhere around between 90 and 96%.
That is crazy.
In 13 days. And so between here and Port Angeles, they're dying rapidly. It can't be food because they're just not eating that much in 13 days.
And they're surface travelers, right?
And
like
they're
you brought
surface
up.
travelers,
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
and near-shore swimmers.
Right, and so our hypothesis is that it's seals that are feeding on these. And we've had a couple of things to look at that have given us a clearer picture that it really is seals. We had a number of years, like 7 out of the last 8 years, where the transient killer whales, the Biggs whales that feed on seals and porpoises and sea lions, came down into South Sound at exactly the time our steelhead were out migrating during that 13-day window. So we put a bunch of acoustic tags out and monitored their survival and found that instead of 90 to 96% dying, 40 to 50% of them were surviving. So we tripled, quadrupled their survival because the whales came through and affected the behavior of the seals. They didn't eat them all, but they got them off. They
Pushed
were all
them out.
pushed them out of the water,
Yeah.
and our fish made it through. And then another, if I could just for a little longer, another circumstance we took advantage of is although we've lost our South Sound herring population, which is really affecting our ability to recover Chinook, it's making the glass smaller. It's been replaced by anchovies.
Yeah.
And anchovy spawning in South Sound has just been crazy the last few years. Just,
really on the uptick the last 3 years.
you can see it from the satellites. I mean, it's huge. So they spawn, where herring spawn on plants, basically kelp, macro kelp blades. Anchovies are open water spawners in the deep inlets. And they're spawning in April and May. And so as they moved up into the inlets to spawn, the seals went with them to feed on the anchovies. So they cleared the main body of Puget Sound. We threw a bunch of tags in steelhead, and lo and behold, same survival as if the killer whales had come through. So clearly, seals are affecting the survival of our steelhead. And if we don't do something about that, we're making a choice by not making a choice that we favor seals over steelhead. And I'd like to catch a steelhead on the Nisqually River again. Those are awesome fish. My dear friend, Willie Frank Jr., Billy's son, and I've known him since he was 6 years old. He's been fishing on the Nisqually for 20 years, has never caught a steelhead. That's ridiculous.
On his home waters.
On his home waters.
That his dad's name is synonymous with, you know, the evolution of fishing and treaty rights and everything else that go along with Native Americans in Washington State. I mean, long-standing family history name, obviously, if you follow anything going on in the Puget Sound region for sure. So, so much work to get done and not ever enough time to talk about it. We barely scratched the surface on habitat, but, you know, unfortunately we're out of time. So, can't thank you enough.
Can I make one more plug for habitat?
Please. Yes.
We need more money. We need people out there who care about fish to go down in Olympia and demand that we do something about habitat now. The glass is only going to get bigger if we can do something about habitat while we're dealing with marine mammals and other stuff. We've been funding, I've been the chair of the Salmon Recovery Funding Board for 12 years. I'm no longer there, but I was there for 12 years. We have funded about 15% of the identified need for salmon recovery across the state of Washington over the last 20 years.
For habitat?
That is not enough for habitat. If we don't start significantly funding habitat, this is all lost.
The developers are way out in front of the forces being brought together for habitat, reclaiming habitat or rebuilding habitat. Developers, you know, with the lobbyists and there's ability to get, you know, within government and get at the stroke of a pen to go ahead and just clear that entire area and build, you know, I mean, just look around us. It's nonstop with the urban sprawl and where we're going with development and advancement. So you're right, more money is needed. We're way behind the curve on reclaiming habitat or resecuring habitat. And unless we pay attention to that portion of the pie as well, all these other things are, you know, I don't want to say we're wasting time, but every little angle has to be worked collectively, I think, you know, simultaneously to get to this end goal of recovering salmon.
And I've got some ideas around that, and next time I come back, hopefully soon, we can talk more about it.
Perfect. Yeah, we got more to dig into, and you're a great resource to bring in. So
wonderful.
Hopefully you enjoyed David Troutt in here in studio tonight. Lots of information, trying to help educate the masses out there to truly what's going on, not just on the surface, but behind the scenes. Kramer, thanks for coming in again, buddy.
Of course,
always
man. Always a hoot.
I know, really appreciate it. David, you will be back for sure.
Thank you.
And maybe we'll have some lingcod next time.
Ooh.
Huh?
There we go.
Or maybe some...
I'm back.
Maybe some Nisqually wild steelhead.
Maybe some smallmouth.
Or some burgers.
My brother used to say, you know, the funny thing about wild steelhead is it tastes just like bald eagle. So, anyway. All right, with that, we are going to call it a night. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. We ran a little bit over, as we typically do, but I hope you found the information interesting. Go ahead and blow us up on our Facebook page. Let us know what you thought about the conversation. Give us some insightful feedback. Ask questions if you have them throughout the week. I'll try to get Barnum back in here next week. No, he probably will not have cut his hair, and the mullet will continue to expand as we know him. So have a great week. Be interactive, be relevant on Facebook with us throughout the week. Post up your successes. Hope you get out on the water, and we'll see you right here next Thursday on Fish Hunt Northwest.